Get ready to hear from a man who has revolutionized the stunt industry with his innovative approach. His engineering skills and passion for stunts have helped him develop the equipment that is now essential for stunts. He has played an integral role in shaping the current standards of the BC stunt community. So join me in welcoming JJ Makaro.
I'm JJ Makaro, and this is the Stunt Archives.
Good morning, JJ.
Good morning to you.
How you doing?
I am fine.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Merritt, BC.
What movies shaped your childhood?
When I was a kid, we used to, every Saturday, they had a Saturday afternoon matinee, and I would go to it every week. And it was usually, it would have a serial, a small 15-minute portion of a show, and then it would have usually a Western. So I grew up in watching the John Wayne and Gene Autry and Randolph Scott, things like that. That was the people that I was watching at that point. When the Clint Eastwood movies, the Man with No Name, Sergio Leone movies were coming out, and I saw those and became hugely fascinated by them, and so that was, a lot of my focus was on that sort of stuff. The spaghetti westerns had such a neat look to them and a feeling to them that kind of played against like the John Wayne type stuff, which again, I loved both.
Yeah, I would say that's like the birth of the anti-hero, were those movies.
Yes, it made it easier. You didn't have to be perfect to be one of those cowboys.
So those movies, were they the basis of your pursuit towards becoming a stuntman?
I just remember, I was out, I wanted to be in the movies like everybody else. As a little kid, you think, oh, it'd be great to be a movie star and blah, blah, blah. And then I started realizing that the games I was playing, and be it Westerns, be it cops and robbers with my friends on our bicycles, I realized that the guys that were having all the fun were the ones that were getting shot and falling down, or getting in a fight with the other guy and getting thrown off of something. And that was where all the fun was. And then I realized that that's what I wanted to do and what I was meant to do. I wanted to become a stunt performer probably around 8 years old. I knew that that's what I was made for.
Growing up in Merritt, I'm assuming it probably felt like a pretty far-fetched dream. What training did you do to achieve this goal?
Oh God, I don't think I ever really was. You need to talk to real stunt guys to get that sort of information. I just was good at taking abuse. I was a rough and tumble kind of kid, but I never had any real formal training of any kind, and I've never really considered myself a highly technical stunt performer. I've been jealous of all of these guys that are incredible gymnasts, or really great with their bikes, or really good with horses, or really good. I never was that. I just was good at, I like to say that I was really good at self-preservation. I knew that if I got put in a situation that was risky, I would find a way out of it. And that's sort of how my career went. Whatever I did, it was more about knowing how to make it through rather than being particularly skillful at what I did. That's what I thought stunt people were when I got started. I didn't realize that there was this training involved. I didn't realize like the gymnasts were, the best guys were gymnasts. I don't know why I didn't. I just wasn't aware enough, I guess, because right from the very beginning, the best stunt people were gymnasts and things like that, like Errol Flynn. Was it Errol Flynn or Douglas Fairbanks? One of the two of them did not want to have a stunt double for years, and he was walking with this one guy who really wanted to be a stunt double one day. And as they were talking, they came past a table, and without any thought at all, the man's name was Richard Talmadge. Without any thought at all, he did a flip over the table and landed on his feet again, right beside the actor, And they kept walking and talking, and the actor looked at him and he said, "You start tomorrow." So, and he was his double for the rest of his career. So I never knew that. I just knew that the guys took a pounding. Like the guys that I was in awe of were more famous for the poundings they took, and the radical getting shot off a horse, or riding a horse down, or riding a stagecoach off of a cliff, and all this. And it wasn't until I'd been at it for like 20 years or more, I met Terry Leonard, who is like a stunt god. And he started telling me about how he first got started, how he was looking to get people's attention. And he showed up, he got to do a high fall, and he showed up the day before at the location for the high fall, and he was out there taking measurements and all this other stuff when his boss and the rest of the stunt guys showed up. And they saw how he was approaching it from a technical point of view, and they were all impressed. And that helped him to move on in his career and become, get started with it and get accepted by everybody there. And that story blew me away, because I knew him as the guy who fell off the stagecoach and got sucked underneath it and came out the other side and climbed out. I knew him as the guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark who was underneath the truck getting drugged by the truck. I knew him as, from crashes that he'd done and all this other stuff. I had never really thought about how he had done it technically. It made me feel better, because I did approach things that way. I wanted to know where I was going to land. I wanted to know what it would take to do this. I wanted to know all that stuff. But I wasn't, like I said, it wasn't about skills. It was just about knowledge for me.
How did you get started in the industry?
Growing up in Canada, in a small town in Canada, I didn't really think it was possible to become a stunt person. I thought to become a stunt person, you had to live in the States or have a reason to actually get a job in the States, and then go down and be in California and chase your dream there. So I started by trying to find stunt schools. A friend of mine actually took me under their wing. I joined a stunt group in Edmonton, which means basically I was being rooked by somebody. And a friend of mine said, "Well, no, I can't let you keep going down that path." So they got on the phone and they started finding out from LA how to become a stuntman down there. And they actually found me a stunt school to go down there. And I went there, and that's where I started to accumulate my knowledge about how to succeed in this business. This place gave me a little bit about high falls, a little bit about car hits, a little bit about fighting, but nothing that was equitable. What they did give me, though, was connections to a handful of Canadians that had come down there and wanted to be stunt guys, and I followed them back up here. And those are the people that made me a stuntman. Mike Langlois was there with me, and I followed him up here, and I just copied everything he was doing until I met enough people to be able to go my own way. I knew of Bill Stewart, and I got to know him, and that he showed me a little bit more of it. And then gradually I started making my own connections and realizing there was actually an industry up in Canada, and there was hope for me to be able to get somewhere. And then after that, it was all just luck. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, with the right skills that they needed for that particular time. And I think if it hadn't happened the way it did, I don't think I would have ever made it. So I try to be very understanding of the people around me who are either just starting to get into the business, or haven't gotten into the business, or tried and never really got ahead, because I know I'm actually one of them. I just happen to get the breaks.
What was the name of that school?
Kahana Stunt School. It was the only one that the Stuntmen's Association down there would acknowledge existed. And I think because he was a Stuntsmen's Association member.
Who were some other mentors during this time?
There were the Stunts Canada members that came before me. Actually, I was thinking about that the other day, and my answer to that question has changed a lot. I do have like the ones that I very much owe my career to. John Thomas was one of them, the special effects coordinator. Alex Green was another one who helped me along the way a lot. There's a director, David Nutter, who took me under his wing and looked after me, and actually insisted that, I owe him probably the most, because he insisted to the world that I knew what I was doing, even before I knew what I was doing. He made that happen. And then there was a couple of producers that took me under the wing and looked after me as well. And they taught me how to do what I do. So those are my classic mentors. But when I heard about this project here, I talked to Colin about it, and I sent him a list of like 9 people that I think made this industry here in Vancouver. Jacob Rupp, John Scott. I'm hoping Betty Thomas will be included in this. There's Tony Morelli. These people were my compatriots. I grew up with them, but always in awe of them. They all taught me so much just by doing what they did and me trying to copy them.
Do you think your aptitude for mechanics and engineering helped you as a stunt performer?
That's basically what I relied on. The really good high fall guys, you can go out there and put the airbag anywhere, and they're going to do a bunch of fancy flips and all this other crap and end up on that mark, no matter where it is. I had to do it by math. I had to know when I fell off of here, where would my body likely end up? It's the same with like fire gags. It was the same thing. I had to do a progression to figure out, okay, well, this means this, but that leads to this, that leads to that, and leads to this. And I worked my way through it all until I got to the point where I could understand what was going on. I did a fall off the chief at one point that was a mountain climber, losing it and following the length of his rope. And I knew all of the technical. I knew technically it was possible, but I didn't understand how it was possible. So I had to go out and get the ropes and do the tests and figure all of that out. That's how I did things, was by figuring it out, doing the tests. So without that, I was, that's all of my skills lay in setting things up till they'll work for me.
What was your first credit?
Oh, you know what? I don't know if I got a credit on it. I was an extra on a show called Draw for one day. And then I spent most of my time just hanging out with the special effects coordinator and learning what was going on with everybody. And it was a fantastic thing because it starred Kirk Douglas and James Coburn. And there was Kirk Douglas chatting with this kid and doing the gun spinning, and he's throwing it over his shoulder and catching it on the other side and not missing a beat in his lines, and then catching it on the right word and then all this other stuff. And then he puts it away and runs and hops onto the back of his horse. And he's doing all of that stuff that I watched as a little kid, and now I'm watching the real man do it here. And then he goes and does the classic John Wayne Stagecoach gag that, he's headed for it. And then I get to watch this really talented stuntman, Tom Glass, do the exact same gag again. And I'm watching a classic, and this is my first day on set.
What were some of your first memorable gags?
Again, back to technical. I was, what happened was, it was a fluke. I went to the stunt school in the States, and they taught us a handful of things, and one of the things they taught us was high falls. What they do when they teach you high falls is you start at 10 feet and you throw yourself onto the bag, and then you go to 15 feet and you throw yourself on the bag, and you go to 20 feet and you throw yourself off the bag, and you go to 25 and you throw yourself onto the bag. And each time you go up one, the teacher from the school was saying, you know, we're not pushing you into this. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do this. So I was the only one at 25 feet that went okay and came back down and didn't do it. But the next day I went in, I did it when I got more comfortable with it. And then when I came back to Canada, I kept running into people that had bags. So I would get a little bit more experience and a little bit more experience with them and a little bit more experience with them. And all of a sudden I found myself in the position where I was doing them higher than anybody else. Somehow that's what got me into the business, because I came to Vancouver to try to figure out how to get in the business just at the time they were looking for somebody to do a big high fall. They came to where I was hanging out and interviewed another guy to do it. And he was a really good gymnast. He was actually really flippy and all this stuff. At 30 feet, he was awesome. But he wouldn't go up as much as I would. So while they were interviewing him in the background, I climbed up this huge tower, 65 feet, for a bag that was rated to, I think, 80 feet. No, I don't think it was rated to 80 feet. It was 60 feet. And I climbed up to like the limits of that bag. And without any preamble, I climbed up and I put my back to the stage and I just fell and watched it. So while the guy is interviewing my buddy, I'm stealing my buddy's job by doing the high fall that they want him to do behind them without any ado at all. It was a con because I was terrified. But that was the limits of my abilities, but I pretended that it wasn't. And that got me into the business.
What was the name of the other performer?
Nope.
You're not going to tell us whose job you stole?
No, he knows. He'll hate me for it.
Yeah.
I'll be getting a phone call. It wasn't anybody you guys know. I don't think either any of you know the guy. He did okay. He ended up going to LA and having a pretty good career there for a while.
What was your worst injury as a performer?
I've been lucky. I've not really had bad injuries as a performer. I had one where I augured in from about 25 feet, maybe, because it couldn't have been more than that. I would have died. 25 feet on a glacier, I fell into a chasm. It opened up. The story point was it collapsed and I fell into it. And when I fell into it, a few things went wrong and I didn't get to my safety point and I had to ride down onto this and land on this ice floe kind of thing made of styrofoam. And when I hit it, I did everything I could to save myself, but I took a really bad pounding on the bottoms of my feet. And that's probably the worst thing that ever happened to me because I couldn't, it was like getting beat on the feet with bamboo kind of thing. It was that kind of sore. I couldn't put any weight on my feet because my feet were tender. I was working on Iron Eagle 2 in Israel, and we were doing this shot where I was running through this room full of computers, and they fired a whole bunch of 10 test, which is a little particle board in the air with propane cannons. And when it went up, they actually all ignited, and they didn't like catch fire and came down, but all the edges on them were all glowing like cigarettes would do. And I'm lying there playing dead, and one of them came down and did a rim shot on my ear, and I'm just lying there trying to play dead, and then it fell in my ear. And I was like, didn't like that, but it was whatever. It just kind of went numb. And then afterwards, when we were finished it, they cleaned the stuff out of my ear, and as soon as they cleaned it out of my ear, it had actually perforated the eardrum. So as soon as they got all the dirt out of there and I breathed in, all of a sudden I had a huge rush of air in my ear. And that was, that was a significant moment of its own.
What was the transition from performer to coordinator like for you?
Becoming a stunt coordinator was difficult because there was not a lot of work here, and we had some really good stunt coordinators already. So finding actual room for me to fit in, we had John Wardlow who got everything, And then if he didn't get it, it was Jacob. And Jacob and Bill Ferguson were competing for everything, and they were both very smart and very personable kind of people, and they got all the shows. And then when it started to get too many, I thought I had a chance, but then Tony Morelli showed up with all of his charisma. And so I just kept falling further and further back, and I kept trying, but compared to these guys, I just couldn't do it. I just was not the salesman that I needed to be. So I just kept pushing and pushing, and finally I got opportunities. How to do it mechanically so that these great performers that I brought in could do their jobs to their best abilities. That was always what I loved doing. I liked actually pushing them to bring in the coolest thing that they could do. I always wanted to. I was forever selling bigger gags and trying to get my people in, and they would be like, why did you talk them into that? Now I have to do that. Yeah, but you can. So that was what it was like.
Can you walk us through the technical evolution of stunt equipment in BC?
When I first got here, we were bringing our equipment up from the States. You had the air rams and the ratchets and stuff like that. They were just getting to the polished state at this point. Not quite yet, but it was getting to that point, and we were starting to get the stuff brought up here. And I was lucky to have stumbled across a like-minded person in John Thomas, who was all about understanding the equipment and understanding how to use it and the technical aspects of everything that we did. And he, as well, had a really strong vision about how to create the industry, and he was very much into that stuff. So he spent a lot of money on equipment. So we ended up with great resources. We had a big shop that had engineers and welders and fabricators and incredible machinists all working to build the stuff. So as we saw stuff and started thinking about what would make it better, he had the people that could actually do that. And I sound like I'm taking part of the credit for that, and I don't deserve it. I was just one of the guys there helping. I was his mechanic, and I cleaned the shop and kept stuff organized. And I was the only guy there that was an actual stunt guy. So I was actually the test dummy for the stuff as we worked on it. And at the same time that he was doing that, we started to get a few more people coming in. And John got famous for actually did get famous for being a stunt rigger, for flying people or flying equipment or flying, building bridges across the chasms that we were going to use to do a stunt sequence, and it would collapse and all that sort of stuff. And so we gradually started learning how to do everything with ropes and cables and how to pull people and make them fly, and how to make them, how to save them if they fell off and stuff. And so he was huge in creating the technical stunt industry here. He was huge in that. And then probably about 10 years, 15 years into my career, people started showing up that were smarter than me and able to figure out stuff on their own. And like Mike Mitchell and Melissa set up a company for renting gear, and they started investing, and they brought airbags, and they started making their own ratchets and air rams and all this other stuff, which was happening on the other side of Canada, in Toronto and in Quebec, but wasn't really happening that much here. And there was and they kind of started all of that happening. It all sort of came together just as I was starting to get recognized as a coordinator, and I ended up on like the first real superhero series that happened here, and we were kind of making it up along the way. So, and then right after I got started, I think Mitch ended up with another show. So I was doing, I'm not sure about the dates on all this anymore. I was doing a show called Mantis, which was a black superhero. And while I was doing that, I think Dark Angel started with Mitch. And so between the two of us, we were utilizing, I had a rigging team and they had their gear, and Mitch had his team and they had their gear, and the two sets of gear were starting to compete with each other in not in a negative way, but each helping. We're all, oh, he's doing that, well, I think we can do that. It's, that sort of thing. And we all grew as a group through this period there. And I think that's where it all came from.
Were there any American performers and coordinators that helped the growth of the industry in BC?
Vancouver, I think, was in a really good position. During the time that I was growing up in this industry, we were in a really good position in that we're close enough to LA to be able to utilize a lot of what they had, but not close enough that they could overwhelm us. So we ended up, because we're a destination, we ended up getting really good stunt coordinators coming up here with restrictions on how many people they could have with them. So as we got more recognized, that number that they were bringing with them became less and less. But there were a handful of people that just came up and just accepted the fact that they were here with us and opened their eyes to us. Conrad Palmisano is the one that most comes to mind. Gary Combs came up. He helped a lot. And they all came up. Every one of the ones that came up very quickly started realizing they had good people up here, and they did support and teach everybody a lot. And again, they were like the best of the best. And they, so we were always learning from the best of the best, instead of being somewhere where you were trying to figure it out yourselves. There was always talented people coming up and showing us stuff. Jacob told you a story about running and jumping off of a cliff onto a moving truck. And he did that with one of my personal idols, a guy named Gary McClarty, who was actually the truck driver on Beverly Hills Cop 2, or Beverly Hills Cop, I should say. He's like a legend in the movie industry, just like Terry Leonard is. So he's another one of those. And he was up here, and he embraced us all and helped us as well. So there was a handful of guys with tons of knowledge that spent a lot of time teaching or mentoring somebody here. And we were able to learn really fast.
What makes the BC stunt community special?
We have something really unique in Vancouver. A very strong camaraderie here. Even if we're fighting amongst ourselves, it's fighting amongst ourselves. We don't bring the rest of the world into it. We have our own area here. It's BC, Alberta is its own island of talented people that all mass together. So we have some really good performers in every kind of style here, because we utilize mostly from here first, And again, we'll have a big martial arts show will come up here and utilize a whole bunch of the martial arts guys here. And the martial arts contingent here is, I think, one of the best in the world. Then we have, like, our drivers are incredibly talented as well, and they got taught by people like Conrad, who was an incredibly talented driving car action stunt coordinator. So we've kind of built this its own individual industry here. We've had some really good directors and really talented producers, and that enjoyed the culture here. And I don't think it's just the stunt community. It sounded like I was saying the stunt community. Vancouver has a very strong family for the whole industry. Like, our producers that are here, support us. shows come back here, or directors or producers come back here because of the community here. So we've become very strong as our own element, and it's very strong, and we found the right balance for a very long time of servicing everybody and still proving that we could do stuff.
What differences do you see between the industry now and back then?
Oh, it's a totally different industry. I feel sorry for all of you guys. We had this romantic, my world, the world I grew up in, was almost like a carny. We were almost like circus folk. We were setting up in old barns with tents and, fighting off the rain and the wind and the cold to produce this thing we were so much in love with. Making a movie in somebody's barn. So I miss all of that romanticism, and I love how technical it's all become and how smart everybody is now, and how much more skilled everybody has to be in this industry. But from my angle, it looks like you guys are factory workers. Yeah, I feel sorry for you all. You all show up 9 to 5, and this is my job description, and this is what I do. And we weren't that. I think you youngsters, I say in my old voice, I think you guys are missing out on that. You would have loved that. It's phenomenal what you guys are doing now. It's phenomenal what the shows are all about now, and the huge technical abilities that are being displayed. The rigging stuff is so far advanced of what we were trying to do back then. How the way we move a camera, the ways of moving a camera, the ways of lighting something, the way of building a set, everything is so much more detailed and precise now, whereas back then it was an art. Now it seems more mechanical. And maybe that's just because I come from that time, and maybe you see it the other way around. I don't know. But it was so cool to be able to do that.
What is it about the industry that you love?
I think it's it was a place where this misfit that I am actually could find a home, and actually got to do things that he was proud of, and I get to show off a little bit, probably more than I deserve, but it's all of that. It's the most fulfilling career you could have, I think, and we've been extremely fortunate to be part of this, so if that makes sense.
What qualities and characteristics do you think make a strong performer?
Being adaptable, being tenacious, and being driven. I think that's what makes a good performer. Because everything else, be it skills or figuring out how to do something, or being willing to get up and work that extra 2 hours a day that everybody else isn't getting anything done, where everybody else is relaxing, doing stuff, to be able to deny yourself some time with the family because you need to get this worked out. All of those things come from that tenacious drive and desire to do this. And I think it's not everything. You need luck, but drive is what you need the most. You need to be there when the luck comes by. I feel sorry for a lot of people who were equally as hard-driven as I was, or and half the time more talented than I was, who did not get the luck coming by.
What are some proud moments you have looking back at your career?
I think my proud moments come from watching the people that came after me, the people that worked for me or with me, that learned stuff. Hopefully I'm part part of that wisdom, and part of it they got for themselves, and watching them come up now and do really well themselves. And I'm proud of any one of my kids that is doing really well now. That's what I enjoy the most.
What sacrifices did you make working in this industry?
I don't think I made any sacrifices to do in this industry. Everything I did was a necessity to be here, right? So, and I've been extremely fortunate. I've not had to sacrifice. I've been lucky.
Any advice for current and future performers?
Just keep on trying, keep on smiling, keep reminding yourself how lucky you are to be here.
What are your 2 favorite movies?
My favorite movie of all time is The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I watch it over and over and over and over again. The most fun I've ever had watching a show was Hooper, because it's basically the dream life that we wish we were living.
Can you tell us about the stakeout movie fight scene?
I still was very fresh, and all of a sudden I was on a very popular comedy show, and I was in the beginning of the show, and then in the middle of the show, and then the end of the show. And I proudly took my grandma and my mom and my dad to see this thing, and it blew me away, because they said, all right, I guess you're serious. This isn't just a wish. You are going to do this. So that was that. As for the fight in the beginning, it was an eye-opener for me. I didn't know much about the industry, but because I was now, as I said, in these 3 parts of the show, that made me an actor, which meant that I needed to be treated like an actor. So I got to learn about what happens in the hair and makeup trailer, because a big part of hair and makeup's job is to primp you up and to give you the confidence you need to get through your day. I learned from that to try to respect actors no matter how their day is going, because they need to, I hear from people, oh, that actor's arrogant, or that, they've got an attitude, whatever. You need that arrogance to stand in front of a whole bunch of people, pretend they're not there, and act like you're special. You need to really feel that, and so that's what the hair and makeup people do for you, or they help you with. And I didn't know that. I was naive. I just thought, oh, wow, I made it. Look at me, I'm so special. And then as soon as I was finished performing, and I was no longer an actor, they went back to treating me just like everybody else. And I was really hurt. And I didn't get it. It took me a few years to figure out that that was exactly what was happening. They were helping me have the confidence to be able to perform during those days. Now, I don't like fish. Like fish, I don't like the smell, I don't eat fish. The grossest thing I can think of is being around fish. But somehow, in all of this gloriousness, I end up having to have a fight with an actor inside of a vat full of, I can't remember I don't know what kind of fish they were. But just the grossest thing, like even just being in a fish factory, the smell was killing me. And so I'm going in, and I'm going on, how am I going to deal with this? And while I'm having my hair and makeup done, it's coming over the radio. Richard Dreyfuss says he will not go in the fish. Yes. Richard Dreyfuss says he will do 1 shot in the fish only. Richard Dreyfuss says he will do 2 shots in the thing, but they're going to be back to back, and he's going to be out of there in 20 minutes. Gradually it goes out, and then finally, okay, you're doing it, and the 2 of us ended up spending a day and a half in the fish, fighting. We actually, I think we both actually had a lot of fun, even though it was stinky, and you're swallowing scales. Oh, so gross. And guts all over you, and we're fighting, and And one of us clipped the other. I think it might have been me hitting him, or he might have hit me. Can't really remember. Hope it was the other way around. Yeah, we just spent 2 days doing this fight, and it was so much fun to do it, and act with this megastar. Is this like the second day we were or the third day after the fight, and a week later, we are doing the scene in the police station where he walks through and sees me there, having been caught by somebody else, and he's giving me dirty looks and all this other stuff, and he's working with me. He's trying to help me react to him, and you know, so he's coming up and just rehearsing, reacting, like looking at each other, and you know, raising an eyebrow, and you know, snarling, and all this stuff that you don't realize matters, right? But he kind of just absorbed it in me and fed it to me to be able to do once we got over by set.
With such an amazing career, what do you think 12-year-old JJ would say to you right now?
He would have accepted it. He didn't know any better. He was a stupid kid. At that point there, I just assumed that whatever I wanted to do would happen. You know, that's how you are at that point. The 21-year-old me would have been blown away by all of this, because he didn't think this was going to happen at all. So, and you know, truthfully, the 65-year-old me is blown away by it all, because I can't believe that I got as far as I did. I was very lucky.